Hey, Austin, good to see you. Today we're starting with a really important question. Is now a good time to rebalance? Of course, I'm asking because of all the recent market volatility, and we've touched on this already before. But I want to show you something that I found really interesting. It's a look at asset classes year to date. There's a lot that sticks out here, but specifically to me, stocks, right? Down 15.7%. So is it a good time to rebalance?
Yeah, so I think the short answer to that is absolutely. Whenever in general that we have a recent sell-off in markets, there is a potential for our portfolio to be out of balance, right? So the
Mhm.
idea of rebalancing is to keep our portfolio with its desired structure. We want to be sure that we're maintaining our risk parameters and we're not too aggressive or too conservative for the portfolio that we have.
Right. And I think another question that we have to keep in mind, and I know that you are always thinking about taxes, but are there any tax implications that come with rebalancing?
Yeah, and I think with many things in financial planning, Aaron, the answer is it depends, right? So
Okay.
we know there are certainly areas where it could be a tax consequence, and that would be if you have a taxable investment account. So those are going to be things like an individual brokerage account, a trust
Hmm.
account, or even a joint brokerage account, where we have to be cognizant of that buying and selling activity. However, there are instances where it's not an issue and we don't have those considerations to make, and that would be in tax advantaged accounts. So think of items like a traditional IRA, Roth IRA, or even a 401k for that matter.
Okay. Always important to keep in mind. I kind of want to circle back to your first answer, though, because a lot of us consider the 60/40, 70/30 portfolio. But again, if we go back to the asset classes, not only are stocks doing poorly, bonds are also not performing well. What do we do when they're both going down?
Yeah, and that is a very good point, Aaron. And I would argue that is a different environment than many investors have found themselves in for the better part of 40 years, right? Since the
Right.
early 1980s, we've been in this declining interest rate environment where stocks have sold off and then bonds were kind of that ballast to the portfolio. And I think what really sticks out looking at that chart is it really depicts the power of diversification. For many of us,
Mm,
we think the investable universe is just simply stocks and bonds, when in reality, it's much more than that. And we can see here with this chart that this is showing us the true power of rebalancing. And what we see here is those risk parameters get really, really out of whack very quickly if we don't rebalance. At least I would argue annually is kind of the minimum you would want to engage in this sort of activity. And I think it is really important to note, and something that we talk about all the time with clients and prospects alike, that really the most important thing about rebalancing, it's more about risk and maintaining those risk
right.
parameters as
Right.
you enter into that distribution phase.
Right. So just to lay it out for everybody who's looking at this, essentially, if you don't rebalance, then you're taking on, if your stocks are doing well, you're taking on so much more equity in stocks, which, as you know, if you're close to retirement or in retirement, can be rather risky.
That's exactly right. And it presents its own unique set of risks. We know throughout the retirement planning process, it's not really about the elimination of risk, but the management of the associated risks. There's always going to be a trade-off for one risk or another. And the most important point is to be cognizant of them and manage them the best that we can.
Yeah, well said. So if somebody would like your help then rebalancing, what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, so you can give us a shout at the office at 919-322-4113 or reach out at info@patriotwealthnc.com.
All right, and the website as well. Austin, this was really helpful and such a timely conversation as well. I appreciate your help.
Thanks, Aaron.